and welcome to another episode of the Rollwise Show, the place where we talk about things related to tabletop gaming. This week is a very special week because over in Indiana they're doing Gen Con, the big gaming convention. I want to say honestly, it's the largest tabletop RPG convention in America. I can't imagine anybody else is topping their numbers.
I think it's the largest gaming convention. Because I don't honestly know the breakdown like between like board games and tabletop role playing games, but they're all there, and so I think it's the largest gaming convention in probably North America.
Yeah, because I think it was the number I saw was 71,000 people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't think it's as big as like Comic-Con at its biggest, but Comic-Con has so many other media things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, I get to say I went to Comic-Con now, thanks to a friend of ours that came down to San Diego. And honestly, I was surprised. Comic-Con was, well, as advertised. I could find a lot of comics there, but I did not see a lot of tabletop role-playing games, in truth. But then again, I also was running around with a toddler, so I may not have been able to look everywhere.
I think the gaming presence is much smaller at Comic-Con.
They did have people playing games, though. There was a place that there were tons of rooms that were playing Daggerheart, doing other things like that. And I know that happens, but definitely it seems like this is the weekend for all the tabletop RPG enthusiasts.
Yeah, and I mean, Comic-Con's a nerd event, so there's nerd things, but its goal has never really been games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gen Con's always been gaming.
Yeah. So with this, I thought there were some interesting announcements that were happening, and I thought it would be fun to kind of share those before we get into the kind of topic that we wanted to do. We had watched one of Seth's videos, and he had kind of gone over 3 questions as well as what not to say, and I thought that would be a fun topic at the end to kind of expand on a little bit. So one of these days, we'll figure out how to do chapters, and we'll include chapters in this, so you can just kind of skip ahead to the content that you want. But right now,
let's start with the content to insert the chapters, Mike.
I'm sure it does something in the YouTube thing. There's a button you hit, and then it does some magic. It's like a cauldron. I don't know. But moving on. So the first thing is that I've been paying attention to some subreddits, and of course now everyone's kind of throwing stuff out there. What I did find it was funny is that in addition to everything that's happening at Gen Con, I also got the notification that my PDFs for Draw Steel are now available, and they are meaty, like 400 plus pages per book. So that's going to be a lot to get through. But then they're also going to be shipping soon. But specifically on the flip side, at the Gen Con, I saw there were a few different things. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Daggerheart? Do you want to start with D&D? Do you want to start with, of all things, Diablo, the tabletop role playing
I don't know what that middle one is, so let's start with one on either end.
I don't know anything about the last 2 at all, so wherever you want to start.
Well, so I thought it was interesting first and foremost, because at this point, because we're looking at it as kind of like non-D&D enthusiasts, it was interesting to see some articles pour out about D&D and what they're kind of getting to at Gen Con, because it's an important convention for everybody. But what is the biggest player in the room doing? And one article that I really wanted to focus on that I thought was interesting is that they, with the new player's handbook and everything like that, Greyhawk was the setting that they went back to, is my understanding. Having not purchased it, if somebody wants to clarify my understanding of what they're doing with the newest edition of D&D, please go ahead and jump in the comments.
That's the 2024 book, right? 4 or 5.
Yeah, and so there's a few things that they've got lined up. The first thing that they've done is that they're actually putting together an organized play that's based on play in Greyhawk, and they're running different adventures at gaming conventions, starting with I think the first round is right here, and they're basically beta testing organized play and adventures. So as you go through and you're playing this, there's a few things that they mentioned, and this was an article from Polygon, so thank you, Polygon, for writing about this and giving me the lowdown. But they have decided that, when they go through and they're doing the playtesting and everything like that, this is going to shape the future of the campaign. So decisions that are made, things that happen throughout this, and the campaign itself will grow and evolve based on these various worlds that are these events that are happening worldwide. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I really like about D&D, is that so many people play it, so many people participate in it. And when I was doing organized play, a little amount that I did when I was younger, with like Living Greyhawk and stuff like that, I thought that was cool because, you know, you could go talk to other people about being in the RPGA or whatever it was. And I think that community is really neat. So, and I think that they also, and so I'm curious. I mean, would you guys do organized play if it comes back to your local game store there?
I got into RPGA a little tiny bit with one group because we had somebody who moved from back east where it was huge. I like the idea of it, for a lot of the same reasons you do. So I'm for them trying to have some sort of organized play. I realize it's not for everyone. There's some groups that want to homebrew stuff and go in different directions, which is great, right? You can do that with the framework. But for those who want or who are even remotely interested in organized play, I think it's a fun thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something that necessarily interests me too much, but I can see why people would be interested.
Yeah, and it'll be curious. I'll be curious to see how it turns out because, you know, truth be told, you know, just going down to your game store and you know, showing up with a character and playing with a bunch of people, and this week we're doing this adventure and seeing how everybody's doing with that. I think they're pretty good. And I always, you know, do you remember that creator Puffin Forest? You guys ever seen them? They do the animated D&D stuff. Some of my favorite stories are when he's talking about how like he's doing some of the organized play stuff. It's pretty hilarious. So if people haven't checked them out, they should check them out. Really good stuff. So there was the D&D is coming out with some stuff, and there's also some source books and stuff that they're going to be doing. I believe they talked about having a Forgotten Realms thing that's coming out soon and all that. So I'm not as interested in that personally, but we'll see. And of course, Daggerheart was the other. Daggerheart seemed to have the most announcements coming from a single thing so far. Like they were really front loaded on that. So just in like quick succession, Daggerheart class packs, they're going to be kickstarting that this September. They have a homebrew kit for free, so you can like basically learn what you know, it has a lot of information for you to design your own communities, adventures, campaign frames, and stuff like that.
I thought that was the announcement that I thought was really cool, was the homebrew kit, a kit with suggestions on how to make it your own game and your own world. I think that's neat.
Yeah,
it is 100%.
It's free. Download that shit if you're playing Daggerheart, and maybe if you're not, you know, use it as, see what kind of information they suggest as to how you can structure your content and stuff. This one I thought was hilarious because since I'm not a Critical Role watcher other than highlights and stuff like that, there is a Romantasy campaign frame. And for those that aren't aware or haven't seen our first video, campaign frames are kind of like your campaign structure that you start with as a GM in this. And what they've done is they've tied this Romantasy campaign frame to an in-game novel or something like that that's part of the joke, called Tusk Love. When I looked it up, I thought it was pretty funny because I was like, what the fuck is Tusk Love? And apparently, according to their wiki, it's like a smut novel in the game.
Weird.
And Jeff, you said that people were excited about this.
Jeff didn't. I did.
You did?
No, yeah, I didn't say that, but I'm not surprised.
On the video, they said
my partner consumes some of these books, and I might be able to get her to play some Daggerheart.
On the announcement video, they said everybody cheered when people announced it, that they were doing the Romantasy game.
Did they do it at Comic-Con or did they do it at Gen Con?
They did it at Gen Con. All of these are all of these release
announcements
are from Gen Con.
Okay. That's awesome.
So the panel must have just been like, you know, pretty much people doing the wave as all these different announcements are coming in.
Yeah.
Whoa, cool. And then, of course, if you did this sequentially, people probably were really excited about this Romantasy campaign frame, which, play whatever game you want to play. Have fun. Sounds like enemies and admirers alike are your rivals as you set to take on this year's matchmaking season in the Shining Empire Lumisara, the City of Crowns. Sure, go for it, man. Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford. Everyone saw the announcement that shortly after retiring from Wizards of the Coast, both of them joined up with Darrington Press, and Jeremy is going to be doing a full setting for Daggerheart inside a hellishly terrifying genre, while Chris Perkins will weave some tales spanning campaign frames to a wider interconnected adventure supplement. So it's written. So that's kind of nice that, we talk about people that are good at writing adventures and stuff like that. I'll be curious to see how those translate to Daggerheart, because that's big names equals big expectations, right?
Well, I mean, their names are big because they've created quality work in the past, right? Like they've done stuff that I've really liked, and a lot of people have. So you're right. I think there's some expectations, but I think there's also some excitement.
Yeah. And past that, there's going to be some actual play updates. They've partnered with a bunch of people to do some sponsored actual plays. They've got partnerships in terms of like Hero Forge, dice sets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And out of all these things, when Brent sent this to me originally, he basically said that, they have a new Daggerheart world being created by Keith Baker and Jen Ellis. And that was what caught my eye, because Brent and I think our Eberron days were a little bit before you started gaming with us, Jeff. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I am aware of, obviously, Eberron. I liked Eberron. I don't think I like it as much as you do, but I think there's only probably 2 people that like Eberron more than Mike does.
It is your preferred setting. It's true.
I mean, if I could play, in terms of fantasy settings, Eberron was one of those things where I had been like, oh, I really wish there was a setting that was like, and it pretty much had a checklist of, I would like this. I would like kind of a steampunk kind of, but more magic-y and arcane and tall cities and spires and weird arcane stuff, pretty much. And as I was reading Eberron, it was just like check, 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 check. There was so many boxes that it was checked for me that, I couldn't have asked for a more, a better campaign setting for me at the time. I really, really love it. And we played some good games in it. I played a fairly long campaign and that I absolutely loved. And then of course we did some stuff in Eberron later, just some short stuff. That was a lot of fun in my opinion, but yeah. So Daggerheart, I don't know. It could be just the marketing and, and I know that it's hard to really know how it plays. I would be really sad if we went into this and it I had my expectations that this could be a really fun thing, and then we basically bounced off of this after the first adventure.
I think Daggerheart probably has strong building blocks. From what I've read so far, I think it'll be a fun game. I think it'll be a fun game to run.
I do too. I think it'll be fun to play in. Most of the comments I've seen on people that are saying that they're bouncing off Daggerheart are people who are wanting to be as crunchy as D&D, and it's not. It's a different system, And I think it deserves a chance to spread its wings. And
it's designed to be a more narrative game. So if you want the D20 crunch and number adding and stuff like that, I don't think you're gonna get that.
Yeah, you as a GM, you don't want to be asking your players to do 15 skill checks a half an hour, because their hope pools will explode.
Well, and the game is built around those dramatic moments it's kind of built around dramatic moments for a show. Which isn't bad, because essentially the whole point is to entertain everybody at the table. Sort of think about your other players who aren't watching what's going on or are also your audience. So that's what it's built around, is those dramatic moments and dramatic things happening. Which is kind of a new take, so that's kind of interesting too.
It is, but that's really the only time you should be rolling dice. If the outcome of the dice doesn't really matter, then why are you rolling dice at all? Just let whatever it is happen.
Yeah.
And that'll be, and I think we'll find out through our play. So if people are interested to watch us play it and kind of explore the rules, you can always catch our videos. We'll be posting some videos over the next couple of weeks. And the funny thing is, I've seen some people suggest that Daggerheart, they're like, don't try to like force your Pathfinder or Daggerheart Pathfinder or D&D into Daggerheart. So kind of like what you guys were saying. But I did find it ironic before I saw those comments that I was like, I really wonder if the Pathfinder setting would be a good place to play Daggerheart.
So. I think the setting. I think you can play Daggerheart anywhere you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you can steal.
As long as you're playing Daggerheart and not trying to play a modified version of Pathfinder.
You can steal. I think you can steal settings, and adventures from any system and play them pretty much anywhere. It's just the amount of conversion that you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that makes the feel of it, and I think that's really the thing I would be wary with, like the Pathfinder game that's coming up, is like there's things specific to Golarion, like races. I think that's the one of the or heritages or ancestries, whatever you want to call them. I think that's one of the things that you need to be careful for, is you can find like analogs, but sometimes the analogs aren't exactly what you want.
Right.
So we're just throwing caution to the wind, and we're just saying the Daggerheart races just work.
I would always suggest taking inspiration, not necessarily just pulling it whole cloth, unless it's
that's good advice.
D&D to D&D sort of thing.
It's true, but I'm excited to see a fungi druid and a simian ranger. It'll be good times. So Daggerheart. We'll see. We'll see if the hype train continues. I kind of hope it does. I mean, we're probably speaking from the perspective that we want there to be more games, not less. So any game that gets out there and is successful, that draws people into the hobby, we really want them to be successful. Even if Daggerheart became the new D&D, where it was kind of like it kind of introduced people to the hobby, and then after that point they were like, oh, there are these really cool like indie developers or smaller publishers that have some really fun games, and they started expanding their craft shelf or their RPG bookshelves and stuff like that. Any of those is perfect. So I think the next couple, I think those are the last. I have just a couple more things that I saw that I thought were interesting. Is that the first thing is that I did not know that Glass Cannon, they had this website, Glass Cannon Unplugged, that they teased that they're going to be doing something with Diablo, the Blizzard property, and they're actually going to be releasing both a board game and a tabletop RPG. Now, Jeff, you may be more interested in the board game than I am, but the Diablo setting is something I've enjoyed quite a bit, and I know you. I think Jeff, I know you played a lot of Diablo even recently, but I don't know.
I've played more of. I think I played 1, 2, and 4. I didn't play 3, but I think I played more of 4 than I did the other 2, which is probably a little heretical. Because I think 1 and 2 are the better games overall, but I enjoyed 4. I like Diablo. I like the universe. I like the lore. As for what the board game, my first thought when I hear something set in the Diablo universe is that it's going to be like super miniature heavy, and I have enough really big games like that I hope that it does well. Like I hope the Glass Cannon knocks it out of the park. But I don't know if that'll be one that I will be buying. I need to get more information. But you get to a point with board games where you can only handle like so many campaign games. Like it's easy to get caught up because they're fun. They really are. But like, are you really going to get a play group to play through 150 hours of, I don't know, Gloomhaven?
Right. My first thought when you said that there was a Diablo board game was, is it going to be the cow level? That's my first thought.
Optional, probably optional. It's just you're just like, well, why is this entire box full of cows? What is happening here?
Future expansion, anyways.
That'd be magical. If there was a Diablo party game about the cow level. That'd be great.
It could be fun. But I mean, from the tabletop RPG, I mean, obviously at this point, it's too early to really spread much more than teasers. But what they did say is that they said that the game is going to be dark fantasy. And this is quoted from their website. The troubled and dispossessed invoke your aid in a realm where flames serve to fuel darkness instead of light. Ooh.
I honestly think I'd be more likely to play the RPG at this point than the board game, but I'm willing to give them both a shot.
Sure. There is an inner struggle, strike a path between the force of light and darkness, and a tug of war between sin and integrity. So I'd be curious as to how they worked those kind of mechanics. Action combat, it says fight against multiple opponents and at once in satisfying, fast-paced combat. I always like it when somebody says satisfying. I'm really curious what that would imply. Like, do you just smash stuff? Go berserker barbarian and you just.
I mean, I think they say D&D has satisfying combat, so it is whatever.
I've been in some 45-minute combats at the end of D&D that, by the last 15 minutes, I was like, can this just get over with?
That's sort of my point.
Just end it.
I'm not saying that it's true.
Oh,
I'm saying that it's a buzzword.
You're saying it's been said about it. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm saying
that's fine.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it. They say that a lot about a lot of games.
I'm on the same page as you now.
Yeah, well,
satisfying tactical narrative combat, that sort of thing.
Hey, before you get too crazy with that buzzword soup, yeah, and of course they say they have narrative depth. So I'm going to wait because first of all, if you were to tell me that this book was coming out and I were to look at the art, I'd probably like it just for the art alone, because I've always appreciated, throughout the years, the type of dark kind of play between light, the angels and devils and all that kind of stuff that they've had. But I don't know if I'm ready for a dark fantasy role playing game that's like. Just kidding. I'd play it.
Well, no, what I'm saying is like I think 90% of what's out there is dark fantasy role playing games now.
It does feel that way.
Isn't Shadow Dark? Doesn't it say dark fantasy role playing somewhere in Shadow Dark's tag?
It has to say it's either dark or grim, or maybe it's both grim and dark.
Right. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, exactly.
So, well, needless to say,
no, they can't call it. I think that is copyrighted by a certain company, so I don't think you can say it's a grim dark RPG.
No, I think they definitely say dark fantasy, and I like the game. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Symborum is a dark fantasy role playing game. Yeah, it's a satisfying tactical dark fantasy role playing game. Narrative.
But it has the strength of the IP behind it, which to whatever degree you like Diablo, I think that's where it comes in. I mean, I at least have some rose-colored glasses from my previous playthroughs, because I only played 1 and 2. I went back for Diablo Immortals, saw that it was a horrible cash grab with unsatisfying gameplay in my mind. I mean, it was like, I don't mind like a really easy gameplay loop and stuff like that, but this was just numbingly like brain was just like and check out, woo, and it was gone.
Sure.
Diablo games seem to be partially divined about not playing the game sometimes, where you make that character that has passive abilities that just kill everything and you kind of just walk around.
Yeah, it's just like okay,
like that's my feeling. Jeff, do you feel like that's true? Or
I mean, I think there's been a few of them, yeah, where like they're passive stuff, where you just every once in a while have to throw out a bunch of hurricanes, right, or tornadoes, and just let them do everything, and the rest of the time you're just trying to move strategically to get in position for the next one to take out a big ton of guys.
Or if you're a necromancer, just panic moving around, so you're not like. While everything around you is killing them, and you're just kind of panic moving around.
But I sort of like the button mashing, kill everything on the screen,
yeah,
take all the loot, it has some appeal. I'm
not saying it's not fun. I'm just saying sometimes I know, like when I was playing the most recent version, like my necromancer, that was kind of my goal, was like, how do I do things without having to do things?
Well, it's better than the whole like Skyrim level of play, where I just remember every time in Skyrim that I was playing it, I was always trying like this lofty goal of not being somebody that was just sticking in the shadows, sniping them with a bow. But then that's how it always it's like curved to the sniper. It's fun.
Well, it's much like other role playing games where what's the easiest way to do things? It's not to actually fight them. It's to minimize that actual part of it, because they may kill you if they're hitting you back. So what do you do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Headshot.
Exactly.
So fair enough. Yeah. So speaking of going opposite direction of Diablo, the last game that I saw, this came from the Free League newsletter. Then they said that they had mentioned this because Free League had a few announcements. Obviously they wanted to hype the new Coriolis, the Great Dark. They wanted to talk about their One Ring and stuff like that because I got some new starter sets as well as some miniatures for Dragonbanes. And I immediately clued into the game that they had kind of at the bottom, the Twilight Sword. I didn't know really anything about this, but my interest was immediately piqued when I saw that it was by Two Little Mice, the people that did Outgunned and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first thing that kind of like interested me. But then this is where I'm not sure our group necessarily is going to get into it, but I'll probably purchase it because I'm as close to a Free League fanboy as anybody at this point. But it is so this is what they say. The Twilight Sword is inspired by classic video games like The Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, Ni no Kuni, and animated movies of Studio Ghibli. In the Twilight Sword, players take on the role of champions who travel to bring back hope to the lands of Radia. So champions need to free the world of desperation before they enter the Fortress of Evil, where they can face the Scourge Vardis in a battle for the fate of Radia. You can look at the preview, which I thought didn't have very much in it, but, kind of just like a wholesome save the world Legend of Zelda-esque game with a simple meta plot, as we talked about with what was it? We just played a game that had a simple meta plot. My brain just blanked though.
Yeld had the magical world of Yeld had a simple meta plot. When the simple in the idea that it was easy to get people to do things. Yeah, it was easy. It was easier to make adventures because the adventures could all be directed towards them getting out of Yeld and fighting the guys the key masters to get them out of Yeld.
Yeah. So, the other funny thing about it is that I looked at the cover and it literally looked like somebody was just like, well, what does Link look like? Yeah, we'll just make it a female, but keep all the same clothes. It's just a round shield instead of the other kind of shield that Link had. It pretty much looks as close as you can get to a copyright infringing piece of art that I've seen. I'm not going to say it's copyright infringing. I'm just saying that I was surprised at the similarities between it and The Legend of Zelda, let's say. Blue tunic instead of green, I guess.
I don't understand. It sounds completely legally distinct to me.
Yeah, the shield's a different shape. The clothes are different colors. One's male, one's female.
100% different based on that alone. Sure.
We should let people know that we are not intellectual property attorneys.
Not even close.
And our opinions are just that.
Yeah, pretty much. So but I'm most excited about it. I'm curious to see if the size of the book matches what the mock-up that they have in the advertising is, because it seems like it's a short book, but a tall book. And I don't know. I'm not sure about that. We'll see. It's weird.
Interesting.
I have weird things about books on my shelf. I don't know, whatever. But we'll move on. So
you can just say weird things. That's acceptable.
Yeah, I'm just strange. Just have problems. Lots of problems. So I think we all do. As I seek affirmation from everybody else, we all have problems, right? We're all kind of fucked up in the head. But yeah, so Gen Con looks like it's so far off to a pretty big bang. And next year, if we get a chance, we're going to try to make it ourselves. And who knows? I think that'll be fun to go see some of these announcements, get around, see what's going on, maybe play some games with people. That could be a lot of fun.
Some year we hope to go.
Some year, maybe next year, maybe some other year. Yeah, we'll find out. So I guess the main meat and potatoes topic that we were going to talk about is that we had a video that kind of came out really recently. It was just about a week ago, a little over a week ago, from Seth Skokorski. Am I saying that right? I know he said that.
Skorakowski.
He says it at the beginning of every video.
Skorakowski.
Did you watch the video, or is that just Brent and I watched it?
The problem is I get so fixated on trying to remember if I say the name right that I just fuck it up. Like I just pretty much just take that first stare and just fucking tumble the entire rest of the way down.
Are you saying we're lucky that you got Seth right? Is that what you're saying?
No, but I am
okay.
saying that I was really anticipating fucking it up. So I think what I did is I made it happen. Good job, Mike.
Self-fulfilling
But moving,
prophecy.
moving on. So one of the things that was kind of cool is that Seth's channel was actually nominated for Ennies. I'll be curious to see if it pulled it out because I think it does good quality work, and so
I think
really
he
like
won
it.
last. Didn't he win last year too? Didn't he win an Emmy last year? I
don't
know he
remember if
was
it was
nominated.
He's won. He's already won before, and I don't think the Ennies are necessarily like a blue ribbon that everyone does like give everybody a chance to win. I think he makes good content for his channel and everything like that.
He does.
But I don't recall what year or years he's won. So, but I think that he talks about an interesting topic when he says 3 questions that improve your game running RPGs. And I did like how he basically started the video with questions you can avoid. So I think what we'll do is we'll circle back to questions you should avoid because I think that there's actually a lot of questions you should probably avoid. And as a DM, maybe not ones that you would expect, but I'd be curious to see if you guys have any other questions you would avoid other than what he said. So his 3 questions. Do you remember the questions right off the top of your guys' heads?
It was what do you do? What is your intent? And the last one was
How do you feel?
How do you feel about that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is one of those good pieces of advices that people probably forget that these are good questions. But I do have to agree with him that first question, what do you do, is literally like there are people on both sides that have really staked out territory that some people like that question and some people dislike the question. So I'm curious where you guys fall on that. Do you guys like having that question asked or do you guys don't? Where do you guys sit there?
I think if it's asked at an appropriate time, like I'm totally fine with it. I think it sets up like a dramatic, like, oh, this is a big moment. This isn't one of those little moments where I can sleepwalk through it. I've actually got to pay attention and play my character.
I think it's a question that's easy to overuse. If you ask it every time you narrate something, it gets old quickly. I think you need to have different ways to do it. And also he says like he also kind of implies that silence is bad, which I think is once you deliver your like narrative or description, I think just sitting there in silence until they do something sometimes is the best thing to do. It ratchets up a little tension sometimes too. So
yeah,
you don't want to go silence and then go and like interrupt them, but just kind of waiting. Because I think if you do the description right, it introduces it to the point where they know that it's time to take over. But it is a good question once in a while, but it's just so easy to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, it's a basic question, but I think if you were a beginning DM or something like that, 100%, it's a good question to really throw out there. Just for you as the DM to make sure that you trigger them to know that it's their turn to speak, because as you said, you don't want to necessarily have your players interrupting you, and you don't want to be interrupting your players and all that kind of stuff. But it is a good question to ask to basically literally say, okay, well, now it's your turn. You basically pass the ball.
Yeah, the ball's in your court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do feel it's funny though, because to your point, Brent, I was, there is a point in which if you as the DM do not create an actionable thing within your scene description, sometimes players just don't know that it's their turn to do, and then you're just, if you just like, okay, and you look at them expectantly, like, I've set this really cool scene, you're in a blah, and you kind of do all this stuff, and they're like, there's nothing really for us to do here. Why would I? What are you talking about?
That's true.
And so there is a point in which I think that it's interesting because, if you're saying like, well, what do you do? You're asking, okay, well, what do you do? And then they don't have to just do something. It's not like saying you have to like, oh, now you have to action. They can also be triggered to say like, oh, well, I obviously need a lot more information. Are there any guards? Are there any, are there any obvious ways into the castle that we can see? There's stuff that they can do that's just not what do you do before they make the action.
Yeah, what do you do? Do you have any questions? What thoughts do you have? What that sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the magistrate looks at you expectantly.
Oh, I should end everything with that.
I mean, I get that's a real specific example, but it does imply that, waiting for you to do something.
Yeah.
That would be great. Just throw a person. So and so is watching expectantly when you've described no one else in the scene.
they just walk into the room. You've described it. You're down to like the golden chalices set aside on the table, and they're like, the magistrate stares at you. What?
Yeah. Or even better, the other characters in the party stare at you expectantly, and just say that in general, so everybody's staring at each other. Yeah.
Just make a super metagame where there's this obvious outside observer watching the party.
Yeah, exactly. Or that. I like that too.
And it's interesting because I do think that if you feel like you're falling on, well, what do you do at the end of your descriptions too much, you can always, as you said, mix it up. And I think one of the things that you can mix it up with is what more information do you need, so you can kind of, instead of asking like, well, what do you do right away? You can lay a very basic framework. And I'm really curious about people and their kind of opinions on how much should the GM talk versus the players, because there is kind of like the GM always really has the spotlight, right? And in many games, the GM is the one that talks the most because they're always reacting to the NPCs. And so giving a more basic, a good description that gives, players threads in which they can pull and everything like that is always good. But, getting basic out there without over elaborating and then tossing the ball back to them to say, well, what more information do you need before making it?
I think to kind of riff on that, I think the GM can easily take the most of the spotlight. I don't think he necessarily should have the spotlight as often, but it's pretty easy for the GM to fall into I have the spotlight and unintentionally keeping it or intentionally keeping it, depending if your GM's a dick or not.
Yeah. And it's true. And, if you want to be a lazy GM, you should find ways to train your players to be more action oriented.
And don't prep.
Don't prep. It's true. And so, I mean, really, I think, I fall on the use it when you need it category for this. I'm okay with it. I'm not up in arms. Like, I feel some people probably have heard it too much, but it's for it.
I think if you limit it and limit it to like the important story beats, the big moments, I think it probably has more impact.
I think it's like anything where it can get really, really overused if you're not careful. But if you're aware of it and you're focused on prompting when necessary, I think it probably works really well.
Yeah. So next one, what do you want? Now, this is a question that I think gets tossed around a lot because
was it what do you want or what is your? I like what is your intent.
I like what is your intent.
What are you intending to do? Not what do you want, because I feel like those are two. Well, I want to kill the bad guy.
Well, yeah,
that example. That's not. That might not be what happens.
And then he winds up dead. The player's like, I was actually hoping he'd get shook and call for more guards so we could take out a few of them.
Yeah. Or what do you want to get out of this? Like, what are you intending to do with this action? Or what do you want to get out of this action? I feel there are better ways. Just what do you want? I feel like that leads you to a situation sometimes as a GM where you're like, well, that's not going to happen. Like that's a no.
And I'm sorry,
$1 million and a genie with unlimited wishes to start.
Exactly.
I believe you're
the
right.
magic sword.
Correct. I stand corrected. It was intent. What is your intent? Like, what do you intend to happen in this outcome? Because and this is actually true no matter what games you're playing. Like you get, because as the GM, I really like empathize with what he was saying. It's just like, you as the GM are not the mind reader. So if your players are more able to express themselves up front, that's great. But there's a lot of players that as he described in his little skits that like have a desire locked up in here that they feel is going to play out because to them it's obvious. And then obviously to the GM it's not at all obvious, so if you happen to align and do the right action, great, but that's not going to be what happens.
And it's common for your players to just go brain dead with their ability to communicate what they actually want to happen when they're in the spotlight. Like, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've definitely had stuff in my head, and then when I describe what I'm doing, it's half to 3/4 of what I really probably should say.
You will have players sometimes they're like, well, what do you intend? And you're like, I don't know, let's just see what the dice say. Because that's how my head works sometimes. I don't know, let's just see.
Yeah.
Like, one instance I can think of, like when we were in the Age of Worms game, when we were climbing back up in the tunnel with the wind.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of like, well, I don't know, but I guess we'll see what happens. Like,
we'll just climb.
Yeah, the intent really wasn't. I mean, the intent was to get in the tunnel, which we did, but what happened after that was totally suspect. But the reason that I made sure to clarify that is because asking a player what you want, you might not get. Like I said, you could get an answer that doesn't move your adventure forward at all. If you say, "What do you want?" Well, I want to death touch all the guards and have them all die at the same time. Well, that's not how combat works in this game. You're gonna have to roll some dice there, buddy. That sort of thing. Whereas asking them what their intent is, and they can say, well, my intent is to kill the guards. Okay, well, you will kill one guard or potentially wound a guard with this, action.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's an important clarification, and I think if you haven't run very many games, you could definitely run into a problem with being like, what do you want? What do you want out of this versus what do you intend to happen?
Well, and I think that that in terms of like your gameplay with your players and everything like that, what happens typically is if you start using a style consistently, I think people are going to start predicting that you're going to ask these questions up front. Mm-hmm. So the good news is that if your players are responsive and kind of follow your pattern, you'll actually get a lot more of this up front, and they'll get better at being able to.
Yeah, you'll train them to know when you'll train them. Like,
basically. I really thought that a big push with all of the questions was to improve the communication between the players and the GM, right? Mm-hmm. To get some of the stuff out of the head and into the air, right? And the better the communication is, I think the funner the game is. The players aren't frustrated because they're like, I should have said that I wanted him to, I wanted to drag him into the shadows. I thought that was obvious. I wasn't going to leave a dead body on the street, Yeah,
or stuff players like just don't understand, kind of what's happening. Oh, well, I didn't know that the wall was there, or I didn't know that the guard was right there staring at us, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the goblins only spoke goblin.
In fairness, in hindsight, he should have known that the goblins only spoke goblin. But,
that's what I know people are probably tired of me bringing it up, but that is literally one of my favorite moments ever in a game.
A shapeshift into a goblin. Or was it an illusion?
No, he was a changeling, and he shapeshifted into a goblin.
Goblin.
And then he ran up, and I said, "Out of character, does your character speak goblin?" Well, no. Oh, this plan is amazing. Okay.
Walk right up to the gate. Right up.
Oh, so this is a well thought out plan. Okay, gotcha.
I will say he did role play that with aplomb. He did everything he could.
It was very good. Speak. It was very good.
Mm-hmm. It was probably. I do like it. It was a super memorable moment in that campaign.
It was great. It was fantastic.
It was great.
So then I think the last one. Correct me if I got this one wrong too. How do you feel about that?
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was just going to say that that's the kind of emotional connect with your character kind of question. And I have to say that, it's a tricky but helpful question, especially in the beginning of the game. When you're starting to play a character, sometimes you haven't really fleshed out how your character would react in certain circumstances. And this is a good question to ask during those things. I know we were asked this question a lot when we were playing with a person when we were doing one shots with them. And that was it was a nice way to kind of go, well, what the fuck would I think?
I think it's interesting because it plays on a piece of role-playing games that I don't think about very much, which is I mention it, but I don't, when I run games, think about it as much, even though I know about it, is the table as the audience. Because like when you're reading a book or when you're reading a movie, there are those moments where they tell you how the character's feeling as an outside observer. And sometimes I think we think of that as meta knowledge as role playing people. Like, well, I wouldn't know that their character is sad that they murdered the baby dragon, and I wouldn't necessarily know that. But I think sharing that, either having them describe like how that emotion takes place in the character, or how they're feeling if they want to share it, I think is good, because that gives you that higher perspective, more in line with building a story than just playing a game.
Yeah. I also think it ties the player to the character stronger, right? When you understand, because there's probably motivations for the character in your head that you haven't been able to express. I also think that it ties the characters together and the players together as well. When you hear how different people are reacting to the situation that you all just lived through, I think you probably want to limit the question to like really big, impactful moments. Really, ones that have that you would expect to have an emotional component. But I think it can be a strong team building thing. Wow. Sorry to mention team building.
Ooh, team building.
Corpo.
I should have scheduled a meeting with many more attendees.
Those true. TPS reports.
I'm telling you, man, this meeting could have been an email.
Oh, God.
Could have. Yep. Just post emails onto the channel. That'll be good.
Sorry, but I do think it's an important question.
That would be a funny joke.
It's probably underutilized.
I think it is. I definitely think it is. I know I don't use it enough. Because like I said, like there's this perception that like it's meta knowledge, I think. And I think you need to get past that. I think you need to remember it's a different sort of entertainment media, and as people watching, as your players, as the audience, them knowing about the character pulls them into the character, and it pulls you into the character as the person playing the character.
Yeah, it just increases the investment in the whole situation. I don't really see a lot of downside unless every 4 seconds. How do you feel about that? I don't know, man. I just bought a sword from a shopkeeper. I feel great that I got a new sword because the other one broke.
Are you happy? Are you happy with the sword? Are you disappointed about the money that you spent?
Sounds like a bad relationship thing where it's just like, well, what are you thinking now? What are you thinking?
Or a therapist. This is your hour of therapy.
So maybe there is a spectrum in which there is a way to pervert its initial use and make it less good, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you guys? So those are the 3 questions that he kind of mentioned, but I think that there is a lot of questions that can really go in your quiver. Do you have any questions that he didn't mention that you like, kind of that you like asking to throw it out for your own selves, or do you have things that you've heard before or something like that?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. You get anything coming to you, Brent?
I'm sure there's ones that I have that I fall back on, but I don't remember them off the top of my head.
And I feel like there's at least one that I wrote down that I thought that I was like, well, and this is something that is, because it's, we always talk about like, how do we bring the characters into the story and stuff like that, is I really like trying to figure out ways to tie stuff in. And I think that asking questions like, well, what does this remind you of, is a good, just simple question to bring some narrative depth to some of the questions. And I think it's something that I probably wish I should ask more, but it's like, well, how do you add your backstory to the story? Because it's like, well, what does this remind you of? Well, this reminds me of my time when, except whatever.
One thing that I do suggest about all of these questions that I think is an important distinction that I try to do is, if I say, well, how do you feel about that? I say, how does the character's name feel about that? Because I want them to be in the character when they're thinking about this, not just how the player is. And I think using their
I'd say
name,
that, sure.
I try and use the character name as much as possible when I'm asking those questions, because I want them to think about being in character. Is one of the things that I try and do. It doesn't always work, and I can't always make myself do it, but I do try that as much as possible. I actually was thinking about someday doing a Delta Green game where I just have everybody make the characters the same name as their same first names, just so it's easy for everybody. You know, they're different characters, but they're your first name is your character's first name too. Yeah.
So moving to the side where he said avoid this question. I think he said, what was the question? He said, like, are you sure about that? Was that the question to avoid?
Right. It's
basically, are you sure?
Yeah, it's the classic. I decide I'm going to jump off. I'm going to jump off the airship. Are you sure about that? That's the classic sort of, I'm going to do something stupid. Are you sure about that? Meme.
Even if I had perfect information, I'm acting like I didn't have perfect information.
Yeah.
And the GM is confused. Because he gave a lot of examples, which I thought were all great. But in my head, when I heard the GM asking, when I heard Seth asking, are you sure about that? I pictured Pulp Fiction Samuel L. Jackson kicking in the door and putting a gun in your face saying, he said, are you sure, mother? I
just
like pick up the hint that something is wrong.
Yeah,
it's an obvious thing that the GM is like,
right.
I can't tell you not to do what you want to do.
Yeah, it's the GM warning. Like, it's the GM. Does this really sound like a smart idea? Phrase, and it can be so overused, even in situations that aren't dangerous. I think that's why you probably shouldn't do it. You should ask more specific questions than just a general question.
Yeah, I love the example. You unlock the door, the room is open. I walk into the room. Are you sure?
Right. Exactly.
I just said I walk into the room.
Yeah. Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
Okay.
Well, and it is kind of funny because it is something that I was actually reading an article on The Gamer as we were talking about some of these topics, and they had put a list of 10 questions that have translations in them, and it was like, are you sure? The translation was, stop what you're doing, please.
Right. Well, that's the other thing, and it's an easy one to fall into because your players sometimes suggest crazy stuff, and it's like, well, I don't think that's going to work the way that you think it is. Are you sure that that's what you want to do? Yeah. And so that's why I think you should probably be a little bit more direct about it, or switch it up and say something like, are you sure you want to jump off the boat that's 1,000 feet in the air?
Yeah. The clarification part was great, right? So you're going to jump over a gap that's 60 feet wide.
Right, exactly.
Oh, I thought you said it was 60 feet deep and I could jump over it.
Right. I thought it was 3 inches wide and 50 feet deep. I don't know how you got that impression, because I don't feel like that's something I would describe.
It's not how I convey information, but it's obviously how you received it. So we have a problem, and I'm trying to backtrack without taking away your agency. Like, maybe this is just the moment you've snapped and had enough. I don't know.
Or just saying, well, that's 60 feet. Do you feel like your character can make that? Is your athletics high enough to make that? Or something of that nature? Or is making a jump like that in full armor, does that sound like something your character could do? And then your character could say, I'm a Thrycreen, I can jump 40 feet, 60 feet, 65 feet. And you're like, oh, okay. I forgot that apparently. Or I can fly. That's the other,
Oh, did I say jump? I meant fly.
Like, exactly.
I'm just going to glide over there. It's not even a problem.
Yeah, so I did find it funny that this article from The Gamer had other lines that they had suggested as well as translations. I don't want to read all of them, but if anybody wants to check it out,
why don't you pick 2 or 3 of the best?
Yeah,
one. The one that I've asked is like, how many hit points do you have?
Right.
Yeah, that means you're going to die.
Right? To see if I accidentally killed you. That's the.
Yeah, I accidentally. Ooh, this guy's tougher than I thought.
How many hit points do you have? 1.5. He does 1.25 hit points of damage to you.
Then there's always this one, and it says doesn't, and then it has brackets, an absurdly high number hit you. So it's just like saying, does a 62 hit you? Huh? Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, the 13 did. I'm pretty sure the 62 does as well.
And the translation, I don't know if this is how it works, but they said the translation is it's my turn to have fun. Like, is that really what it is?
That's that adversarial GM
That's
thing.
the-
That's
yeah.
an old thing. My favorite thing a GM ever said was, "Oh, he can do that at will. I guess he's not going to do that every turn."
Some of those at will powers and some of those old modules were crazy.
It was Charm Person.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Holy. You
Yep.
only need a few successes before the tides turn dramatically.
He only charmed the level 5 warrior, and then we all proceeded to die. Yep.
Well, our tank is no longer tanking for us. That
Exactly.
sucks.
That game ended with my character dying and the other guy running away.
Sounds about right, though.
You
You had to be a little surprised. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah. If the GM ever says, "Oh, I guess he won't do that every turn," something has gone wrong in his scenario design.
you need to pull flaps and get the heck out of there. You need to reconsider the strategy.
It's true. They did have one more. This one I kind of find it's kind of like annoying, sarcastic. It kind of is in that same vein as you can, are you sure? It's that you can most certainly try. Like,
Well, yeah.
that one's kind of an annoying.
That feels pretty confrontational. Like
yeah.
if you really want to, like, that feels like a parent scolding a child.
It's an "Are you sure?" It's an "Are you
Yeah.
sure?" translation.
Yeah, it's
Just
are you
feels more
sure, but it's a
aggressive to
little,
me. I don't know.
it's a little bit more assholey
Passive
because you're just
aggressive?
like, well, you can fucking try, dude. I've already explained that that's not you have a 12 charisma and this dragon isn't interested. Like,
I attack the Tarask. You can certainly try.
yep. Why flying?
You won't be the first person who have died trying to do that.
Exactly.
It's true. It's true. So I think that in terms of your own annoying, do you have any ones that stick out to you? Stuff that kind of get in that annoy you when come out from the DM that don't say this one?
I've had a couple of times where I feel like I have a grasp on the situation, and this is kind of a extension of, like, are you sure? But it feels like the GM is like, I tell them what I'm going to do, and they're like, and like the guy at the Taco Bell drive-through trying to get you to get the cinnamon chips, add them to you, and I'm like, I'm telling you, man, I don't know what else to do. I told you what I want to do.
What are you looking for exactly?
Obviously, there's something that I'm missing. I get that. I picked that up, but I don't know what it is. It makes me feel dumb. And honestly, I've been dumb in those situations, right? I don't always play, perfectly tactically, but I don't know. That's mine.
I will tell you one thing. If a GM asks me, "Are you sure?" too much, I will do it every time. Pretty much. Yep. I wasn't, but I am now.
You start to get more obtuse. I headbutt him.
I get
Red Dragon? Yes, I headbutt him.
Are you sure? Oh, absolutely. That's happening now. Because I'm that sort of confrontational.
It's on at this point.
Are you sure? Absolutely.
I can re-roll another character, pal.
Well, I think that happened in a game once where my dwarf in full plate armor, it was 4th edition, was going to climb the wall. Like, climb this wall, and he's like, "Are you sure you want to climb the wall in full plate armor?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And then I critted on it. So it was like, ha ha.
Take that, you asshole.
And those moments are worth it. That's what I'm saying. Is those moments are worth it.
Worth it. We won't talk about any of the failures.
No.
Unless they were spectacular.
No, yeah, exactly. I can't think of anything that I'm usually... repetition is usually what gets me when somebody uses the same thing all the time. That'll get me eventually, but it takes a lot. I don't really get annoyed by people's verbal tics very much. Unless
Yeah.
they talk about other people's verbal tics, and then
Right.
their verbal tics annoy me.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of any other myself, and I didn't have any that jumped to mind. Because I was, it was like, well, what could what do you say that's annoying that you're saying that's annoying? And I mean, even at various points in my GMing career, I've said things like, "Are you sure about that?" Are you?
Oh, we've all said those things.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
not. I'm not.
I think sometimes you're so surprised. Like,
Mhm.
I wasn't even in the realm of possibilities in my brain, and you just wow. Are you sure?
I started
Sure?
are you sure? Yeah, I usually just started saying, okay. All right.
Let's see what happens.
Well,
It's in fate's hands now.
This is the dice telling a story for sure.
Well, it's improv at its finest. Yes, and let's
Exactly.
go. So, well, that being said, if you've made it all the way to this apparently right on 1 hour mark, we appreciate you stopping by and listening to our episode. If you happen to be going to Gen Con and you have stories that you want to share, drop them in the comments. New excited releases or whatever you have, just let us know. Also, if you have questions or things or stuff that you do as a GM or your GM does to you that you either like or hate, let us know. Hit those comments with as much graffiti as you'd like. We'll read them. And of course, Brent or I or Jeff will hop in there and respond. Past that, Jeff, you want to let them know about the socials?
Yeah, we're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads as @Rollwise. You can also email us if you need to, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Everyone, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Everyone.